Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of SuperNova Commencements. I am your host, Kashi, Sehgal. We have an amazing show for you today. As always, today I especially mean it. We have a very, very special guest with us. Before we get into anything, congrats to our graduates. I know that y'all are still with us. We are excited to have all of you here with us today. I want to get into our Career Powered by Data segment brought to us by our partners at Steppingblocks. They have a lot of people on their platform. They have 100 million people worth of data, maybe more at this point. And they can analyze trends and tell you what you need to know about the career you want to go into. So check them out. Today we're talking about lots of things related to digital marketing. We're talking about advertising. We're talking about all kinds of things. But today in the segment, we're going to talk about digital marketing. There are about 283,000 people in the digital marketing industry in the country. So that's a lot of people. It is definitely a popular industry these days. I think we could all agree about that. The average age is 38. And it is 47% female, which was surprising to me. I thought it might be a little bit higher than that. Top skills: social media, that seems like an obvious one, media strategy, and online advertising. And the skills that might make you a little bit extra money: interactive marketing, digital strategy, and mobile marketing, which is obviously close to my heart. That was my first company. So mobile marketing is where it's at too. Most people across the country come from these schools: Arizona State, University of Texas, so UT Austin, NYU. And then I also thought this was interesting. They listed General Assembly, which is a great program. They have classes all over the country, also online, and they're a great resource. So definitely check out General Assembly. All right. I think we're ready for our guests. Are y'all ready? I'm ready. I'm definitely ready. All right. Let's bring her on screen. Everyone, please welcome our very special guest today, Angelina Eng. She is VP of Measurement and Attribution at IAB. We're going to talk about what that is. She's also the past executive director for data marketing solutions at Morgan Stanley. She has had a lot of cool roles, and we're going to dig into them today. Angelina, welcome.
Thank you for having me. And congratulations to all the graduates. Yay.
Yay.
We love having new people in the market. So it's always great to have some fresh blood. We need it. So.
Yes, fresh blood for sure. Okay, so Angelina, could you please start us off and just tell us where you're from and where you went to school? What did you major in? Do you remember your graduation speaker? Speaking of graduation?
Well, I didn't actually go to my ceremony. However, Jerry Seinfeld was the guest speaker.
What?
Yeah, so he dolled up the cap and gown and everything at it. So there were pictures online. Everyone was passing it around, but I decided not to go.
Okay.
I was on the beach. Go? I went to the beach.
Oh, nice.
But I went to Queens College. I actually majored in home economics. I graduated with a degree in home economics, which is now considered family and consumer sciences. So that's kind of the new term, I guess. But it was really around there was still some marketing components to it, some business classes, philosophies, social marketing, social sciences, and things like that. But I originally wanted to be an accountant because I went to Brooklyn Technical High School here in New York, in Brooklyn. One of the specialized schools in the area, and I was really good at math. So I really had a knack for computers and math, and I just couldn't get past macro and microeconomics. So I decided to go into home economics just graduate with a degree. But a lot of the classes that I learned in accounting and was really important. So really helped ground kind of my foundation for my career.
Yeah. So strong analytical skills. I feel like that comes into play.
Yeah. Being savvy with the computer and not a lot of programming, but Excel, PowerPoint, Word, making sure that you understand some advanced capabilities, but really having analytical skills and it actually helped me in every single role that I had in my career. I started off as an admin at Young and Rubicam, so I had really good computer skills, and I was the executive assistant to 7 different executives on the U.S. Army account at Young and Rubicam, and so a lot of my computer skills came in handy when I helped them out with their presentations and with their skills, and helped me kind of gain the confidence to knock on the door of the digital group within Young and Rubicam. Was a 12th person hired in that group. And at that time, the roles were account executive or project manager or a web developer. So I went the account executive route.
Angelina, how did you find your way into an agency?
So I went through a temp agency and knew that I wanted to get into marketing, even though I didn't have a lot of classes focused on marketing. I did have a good foundation of some courses that I had when I was at Queens College. So I just beelined my way in, and usually most people coming out of college would start off as an assistant account executive, right? So straight in. But since I didn't have those skills, I started off as an administrative assistant. So I went that route. I typed like 95 words a minute. And because of my computer skills, I was actually a tutor in the computer lab and helped people to figure out how to use Word Perfect at that time, DBase 3.
I remember Perfect. Yeah. The blue screen.
And the blue screen and Lotus 1-2-3. It was also a time when when you had to send an email, you had to go to a computer terminal and send an email. It wasn't part of the standard computer system. Mm-hmm. So I made sure that I had at least a good foundational level of skill sets going into the ad agency.
And it sounds like starting off in the temp agency and then starting off as this admin position, you were proactive in seeking out skills around you that you could build upon.
Yeah, everyone else was kind of like when they start off an administrative assistant, they went to account executive or into the creative side. And I didn't want to just be like everyone else. And so since I was more computer savvy than most, I found an interest in in digital. So at that time, there was only a few people that had access to the World Wide Web at that time, right? So think about AOL, CompuServe, back in the days when we would get a CD and it would say, first 10,000 hours, first 1,000 hours free or something like that, right? So a lot of people.
You were speaking a language that many students today do not understand.
Yeah, so the internet was so different back in 1995. Yeah. It's not like you see today. It was a very closed environment. It's almost like an app environment. And so you got to exchange, communicate with people in chat rooms. You got to kind of do a little research, but it wasn't until the open web came about and a lot of advertisers were like, oh, what is this thing? I can actually put my content onto a page and have users actually want to come and look at my content. So that group had formed in Young and Rubicam called Y&R Brand Dialogue. And I was, I knocked on their door because I had one executive that was doing the website for the U.S. Army, so GoArmy.com, the first iteration of GoArmy.com. And it was used as a lead gen channel. So versus, sending out BRCs, which are business reply cards, those little cards that you get in the magazines where you can put your name and submit it. So this was a way for us to contact and reach out to a bunch of people all at the same time and get them to the website. So I was going back and forth between legal, the digital team, and the marketing executive. And I was like, I kind of like where we're going with this. And said, can I have a job in your group? Can I have a role? Love to be there. And they said yes. And that kind of started the career.
Cool. So taking initiative, don't be afraid to ask. Look, Angelina did it. She was like, I want this. And sometimes it works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the ad agency world and even on the client side, if you're going to brand mark, you need to take the initiative. You need to show that you are a thinker, a thought leader, that you have goals, and that you are looking to grow, and not only grow for yourself, but for the organization.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So just talking about digital marketing as a whole, you've been in that space your whole career. You've pioneered it to a lot of extent. So you've worked for industry giants and huge companies within the space. I mean, real cool companies. Is digital marketing and advertising a career that you don't often see people leave? Like you see other industries? Like, is it cool? Is it fun? What makes it different from a different career? Maybe, I don't know, in like building or construction or something.
So the digital marketing community is actually very tight. Even though, as you mentioned, what was it, like 238,000 people in the industry. Once you kind of put yourself out there and show, network with different organizations, with people in your both internally and externally, you grow a big, large community of people that feel like you're in it together, right? So the digital channel evolves so rapidly, month over month, year over year. It feels like day to day that there's something new that's happening. And so we're all trying to figure out what's going on. What are you doing? Or how can you help me? Or what do you need from me? And so there's just so much more that needs involvement, that needs to involve a lot more people than in traditional channels like TV, print. You have the same kinds of people, but there's not that ongoing, like, what's happening? What do I need to know? How do I do certain things? And in digital, it's a constant evolving thing that we have to think about. Market, how do we target people? How do we, what creatives do we develop? How do we speak to them? Who are people going to, what kind of ads are people going to engage with? What are those experiences that we want? And how are we going to measure it? And so what are people doing either on the website or in the store? So there's a lot of data that gets collected from digital marketing compared to other channels.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Most of your roles, or many of your roles, I should say, have had an operations component to them. How did you hone this skill? How do you hone it as a student? How do you really put it into practice?
So I have a philosophy. I have this saying. I don't know if the crowd will remember this, but there was a movie several years ago from DreamWorks when they first got into the animation arena called Robots. It featured Ewan McGregor and Robin Williams as robots, and there was a specific phrase: find a need, fill a need. And so for every company that I've been, I just didn't I didn't just do the work, but I would look around and say, how can I do things better? What can I do not only for myself to make things easier? Like, how do I figure out how to create a spreadsheet that will automatically calculate things once I put some inputs in it? Or what is the process that we need? I would apply it to my team. I would kind of figure out if it works. And then I would share it with the rest of the organization and try to make it a standard practice. And so for every role that I did that, there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of sharing, lots of time in a conference room trying to understand what are people, struggling with, what would they like to see improvements in. And so it wasn't only just, trying to do the job that the client is asking us to do, but how can we do it better? So that find a need, fill a need philosophy has always helped me. So when I started off as an account executive, advertising wasn't a thing, right? So you couldn't buy ads online in 95. It wasn't until about 98 or 99 that the first ads came out. So I said, well, I'm really good with numbers. I really like consumer insights. Let me get into that. And I started building processes of how to create a media plan. How do we gain consumer insights? How do we track these things? And then that led me into media operations, which I was frustrated at a time when I was at Moda Media, which was about 3 companies in. And I was like, every single time I'm trying to run a campaign, my data doesn't look great. How do I improve my data? And what I found out was that the team that was actually executing the campaigns on our behalf didn't really understand the intricacies and the data sets that we needed. So I helped to establish a practice, and then decided to actually asked to run that team, and that kind of evolved. And so towards the latter end of my career on the agency side, I was running ad operations, which was helping out every single account to manage their process and improve it.
So you were really a pioneer in many ways. And I mean, it's obvious from this conversation and just from looking through your background. How does it feel to be the first at something, or to have to find your way through? I mean, you're the first at your organization, VP of Measurement and Attribution. So does that come with some level of pressure, or give you a certain level of freedom to be the first at something, or to try to figure it out and figure out how to do it for everybody?
No one's ever asked me that question. So yes. There's a level of pride. I think there's a level of pride. But then there's also, in terms of, how I got myself to this position and the people that I've formulated relationships with, really happy with the clientele that I've had. But it also, given today's kind of challenges around privacy and data and so forth, it does, I have to kind of say, was that my fault? Did I have a part to play in that? And I would say that, it's exciting to see how things are changing, and being part of an organization that is trying to help move the industry along. I don't think we said this, but IAB is the nonprofit organization for the interactive advertising industry. So we help to develop technical standards, business practices, guidelines, contract languages, and so forth. And we have organizations that are members. And so we have companies like Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Amazon, who come to the table with us, and we talk about the challenges that we have, and we sit there and go, how do we make it better? And we come up with solutions for that. And so I think that's, really happy that based on my experience, I'm able to kind of, be in a position where I know what's how things work, and working with these great organizations.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a lot of things, privacy and thinking about your role in some of these bigger issues, which I think is really important. A lot of people don't take the time to stop and ask themselves that question, and thinking about the ethical implications. I remember when I was a college student, walking out of the cafeteria or the food court, and just a sea of people trying to get me to sign up for credit cards because they knew I was an easy prey, right? So how do college students or the rest of us, so how do we protect ourselves against unethical advertising or marketing practices?
You need to be selective in who you're willing to share data with. And I think people need to be conscientious of what are some of the results or impacts of their decision. The challenge right now is that marketers have been used to tracking consumers from website to website and figure out how to retarget them, deliver them messages in different places, right? Using contextual signals, working with publishers to figure out how they can match their audiences with the advertisers' audiences because they have databases of names and email addresses and so forth. When a user opts out of tracking, it makes it a lot more difficult for advertisers to spend dollars with publishers that are legit, that are running a business to provide consumers with content. And if they're not getting revenue from advertising, then they are going to struggle in being able to provide that same level of content. But at the same time, I do think that we're moving into a direction where especially Apple and Google are focused on anonymizing data so that advertisers can't identify users as well and fingerprint them. But if you're going to opt into tracking, be sure that you're opting into tracking to a publisher that you know, that you trust, that is partnering with legit advertisers, and where you want to see see certain advertisers ads on those sites. Because if you opt out of an advertiser's ad, you won't see them on the publisher's side. If you opt out of publisher tracking, you won't see any relevant ads from advertisers that you do like.
I have to ask, just so that maybe I understand it, but also students understand it. When we're talking about measurement, what are we really talking about? Could you explain what we're tracking?
So the way we can track the number of ads that are being delivered, what is that frequency? So on average, what is the frequency that typically people see? How many are clicking on those ads? How many people are landing on their website? And how many people are converting? That's the main data points, right? And then there's a couple of other things like engagement, like how long you've watched the video. But most of the data is anonymous, right? However, there are capabilities of, like, when you register for a website or you purchase a product, that they're able to tie that anonymous identifier, like a cookie, to your profile. And so they can then retarget you outside of their property onto the open web. And that's where in some cases, people are seeing the same ads over and over and over again because the technology has identified you as a candidate for a particular product, and they have certain goals to meet in terms of being able to serve you an ad and get you back to their website. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of information around mobile identifiers, your cookie ID, and then deeper level is your first name, last name, email address, and device information.
Yep. Anything you might put into a form that you fill out to
exactly
get something online, that is all being tracked.
Yeah.
Okay. So big picture, what technology or concepts do you think is going to be really important within the marketing and advertising industries, maybe in 10 years?
I think you're going to see television and digital kind of merge. You're already starting to see that, mm-hmm. right? But it's still a little bit clunky in terms of being able to target people and know who they are and what insights or what attributes that they have because it's all based on IP address. But I do think that there's going to be a place where television and digital, where you can interact with advertisers. And while you're watching a show, you can engage with an ad. You can engage, you can look at a product that someone's wearing in a show and purchase that right away. So I think there is a some excitement around that. I think there's AR and VR is a big thing. I think Facebook announced today that they're going to start serving ads in Oculus VR. So that's going to be interesting. I am a huge VR fan. My son purchased a Steam VR system. I like Beat Saber. So, but I can see the potential of walking through a mall or seeing an outfit on someone and wanting to try it on, looking at the items more closely and being able to purchase it right there and then. So I think those are the two things that I'm really excited about. And there's also, I would say, audio and gaming, specifically, what do you call them? Systems games like PlayStation and so forth that are getting really, really intricate as well. And a lot of advertisers are starting to look at the gaming industry as a potential opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that's so interesting what you're talking about that blended industry where like the lines are just blurring. Yeah. I feel like that's happening in a lot of places in life, not just marketing and advertising. I feel like lines are blurring everywhere, but very interesting. I have to ask, we're talking a lot about DEI these days, and you really have a global perspective on what is going on within the industry. How are countries outside of the United States thinking about DEI?
I think there's more focus in the US than there is in other countries. And especially with companies that are US based that have a global footprint. You're hearing more about trying to figure out how to do it well in the States and expand. I think it's still challenging from a global perspective, but from the US side, there is a huge initiative around which we're actually working on at IAB, is to help identify media properties like publishers and websites, as well and social influencers that are either that are DEI owned. So be it a female owner, female leadership, or some sort of minority ethnicity background. We're putting together an initiative to help advertisers and agencies ensure that they're spending dollars with diverse properties and not just the main websites, because a lot of clients' perspective is, if I'm running on Facebook, they're there, right? So they're not consciously trying to target those individuals. And so what happens is that even though the users are on those websites, if you look into the stats, they're not necessarily targeting or reaching those same audiences that they should be. So that's something that our industry is focusing on. A lot of the ad agencies are kind of putting a stake in the ground and saying, I'm going to spend at least 2% or 4% of my budget in minority-owned properties.
Interesting. I love that. And so needed. I want to ask you one more question, and then we have like an insane amount of questions coming in for you. So, so I just want to get your take. You've obviously hired a lot of people in your lifetime. You've had huge teams work underneath you. What is your favorite interview question? Or like, what do you really look for in someone that you're hiring?
So I actually, for my groups, I've always tried to hire the underdogs, right? People that I feel that have something to contribute, but may not be very confident in their skill sets. So I've tried to be as diverse as possible with my team to make sure that people are given the opportunity. But a lot of things that we're looking for are people that are inquisitive, right? So we don't want people that just come to a job and do what they're tasked to do, but look to do their job and plus more, right? Go beyond. But that doesn't mean giving up your life, right? But that means that you're taking in information, you're trying to be strategic, you're coming up with solutions, and you're being vocal and have good communication skills, good analytical skills as well, because that's, in order to figure out how things should work, you have to have those basic skill sets. I make people do Sudoku puzzles just
I
to
love
see.
Sudoku. Maybe I'll apply for a job, Angelina. All right. Okay, let's just dig into these. So Lola would like to know, yeah, this is a good one to start with. You have worked at so many interesting companies. What role did you take where you finally felt like you were an industry leader?
I would say here at the IAB, but besides the IAB, just because my role here, kind of one of the things that was interesting is like we're going through this stage of the cookies are going to be deprecated. Apple's making all these privacy changes. We need someone to really understand what's going on and speak to companies from a business perspective, what this all means. And so I had the opportunity to, I've done so many presentations for the IAB in the past. I've been participating in a lot of their working groups and committees. I've written articles and really networked to get myself here. And so that was kind of the pinnacle. But I also do think that my role at Merkle and at Dentsu, kind of the one and the same, where I went from 4 people on my team to 40 people in 4 years. And started off with 12 accounts and wound up with 45 accounts. So by the time I left Merkle and Dentsu, I was really happy with the caliber of clients that I had and how quickly I grew the teams in both organizations as quickly as I did.
Can I just say that I love that you didn't say, well, I don't know if I'm really an industry leader. Yes, you're owning it. And I think that's, so many people kind of downplay their success, but I love that you're owning the fact that, yeah, you really have done some great things and you have led some great teams and you have had some great clients. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
I mean, it's especially important for women and women of minority to do that, right? Most of you may be surprised. I'm 50 years old. I'll be honest. I'm 50 years old. I may not look it, right? So in a lot of cases, and I'm short. I'm 5 feet tall, right? So 5 1/4. I have like a 1/4 inch. I'm going to claim, right? But I've been in environments in companies where it's male dominated and it's predominantly Caucasian. And fortunate for me, I've had great managers that kind of saw something and said, you know what, we're going to keep pushing you and giving you more work to do because you can do it. And so I give kudos to my previous managers who have gotten me where I am today.
Awesome. This kind of goes along with what you were just saying. So let me ask this question. Salima would like to know. So she says, I graduated from college 2 years ago and work at a digital marketing agency. I just got promoted, but I don't feel like I'm ready. Did you ever feel that way?
Absolutely, but go for it. Go for it. Don't doubt yourself. I think there was a study, and I can't claim the study, but there's a study out there that claims that men will apply for a job and would look at it, and even though they may not be able to do maybe 20 or 25% of what the role describes, they will go for it and they will get that position. Women will look at that job description and hold back and say, oh, I can't even do like 90% of this stuff, so I'm not even going to apply. Guess what? Go for it. When I went into Morgan Stanley, I did not have any official analytics background. I've done a lot of digital analytics, but I'm not a a data scientist. I don't know SQL. I don't know R. However, I do know pivot tables. I do know how to manipulate data. I do know how to read data. So I had a team that I could rely on to help process the data, but I made sure that I, gave myself the mindset of you can do it. So if you put your mind to it, you can do it. So go for it.
Agreed. Great advice. Casey would like to know, what is your favorite part of your job?
It's collaborating. There are times where I will sit on the computer and try to do things myself and do it well. But it's really around working with people, getting their insights, and making sure that other people feel proud of the work that they do. Um, when I ran ad operations, it was really important for me to encourage my team to grow as well. So, it would not benefit for me to hold back anything from them and say like, well, this is my job and I should be the only one to know it. It actually helped to train my team or educate them and give them the confidence to do things on their own, and then work together to come up with how to actually execute a campaign the right way. So I love my teams. I love the people that I've worked with, and I love the collaboration aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Hilton wants it. Lots of tactical questions for you here. Okay, so Hilton says, I want to go into digital marketing. I have started looking for jobs, and lots of posts say that I need experience. I'm graduating next year. How do I get real experience that employers are going to think matters?
Well, first off, I would make sure that you have, a very well put together resume as well as your LinkedIn profile. I'm more than happy to, if you reach out to me, kind of give you some tips, but a lot of, make sure that your photo is professional, that you have a professional photo on your LinkedIn profile, where it has your description. Focus on exactly what you want to do and what you've learned from your experiences in college. But, take the courses that you've had and projects that you've done and list them as part of your resume, as well as include them in your in your LinkedIn profile. Make sure that you join as many groups that are on the topic that you want. So there's a lot of digital advertising forums out there, and then start connecting with people in the industry, and maybe and make sure that you select a few that you could reach out to them and say, do you have time for a 15-minute chat? I'd love to get your perspective or something. I'm more than happy to try and do that for the people here. So reach out to me on LinkedIn.
I get the sense that if we put your information, at least your LinkedIn, up there, that you might hear from a few of these folks. Don't rush her, but definitely reach out if you have questions. Yeah. Take her up on that. Okay, Leah would like to know, was there a role along the way that you thought wasn't the right fit? How did you know it was a fit issue and not something you maybe weren't as good skill set wise?
I'm going to go back to Morgan Stanley.
Okay.
So Morgan Stanley was the first brand that I've ever worked in. So all my life, my entire career has been on the ad agency side. The challenge going in, one was that title of, data management, analytics, and overseeing that data. But going into it, knowing that there's a lot of politics, and probably what I didn't expect was the restrictions, that I wasn't allowed to speak at engagements, that I wasn't allowed to collaborate and reach out to other people for advice and so forth. So that was the most challenging. However, I am so glad that I actually went, because I learned so much about the client side, the marketing side. So I was there for 2 years. So never regret any company that you've worked in. Right? Take what you've learned, be it good or bad, and use it to your advantage in your next position.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Jeremy wants to know, have you had any mentors along the way?
I've had several mentors. The main mentor that I go to or have gone to is actually who has been my boss 3 times in 3 different companies. His name is Walt Cherrick. And he really took me under the wing when I was at Modem Media. So he's one. My first boss at Y&R, also mostly males, I find. But I've had a lot of role models that I've looked at who are strong women who have taken a stance and in an organization and really they showed themselves as very powerful, very charismatic, and also caring. So I think, so I've had many. I would say in total, I have about 10 mentors that I can lean on that I've used throughout the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mentors and role models.
Yep.
I think they're both very important and play different roles. Victor wants to know, what happens if a company doesn't adhere to the standards that you set? That's a good question.
So we work through it, right? There will be some situations where I will provide some insights as to why certain things are better. And if I can't convince a team or the organization to take that route, I would work with what I have and figure out what I can do. And at the same time, I would ask myself, does this company have the same ethics as I do, right? So if it's something that they're doing that I feel that is unethical, I'd probably look for a different job, but I haven't had to be in that situation.
Mm-hmm. But like when you're thinking of, maybe he's talking about also like the companies that are having to adhere to the standards that like IAB is setting.
Oh, I see.
In that situation, how do you handle that?
It's so
you have to handle that.
We don't have to necessarily handle it directly, but their clients and their partners would be very vocal. So there's a lot of things that we do as IAB that not a lot of companies adhere to, and they find it more difficult to do business with their clients. So a lot of demand, a lot of the standards are being requested by their clients, by their customers. So for example, right now we have a thing called VAST4. That's to help video ads to be served at higher resolution and allows for data to flow a lot easier so that we can understand the content of where that ad's being placed, so the title of the show, any creative, whatever the creative is going to be, like there's just more transparency in that. And not a lot of companies have adopted it. But it's not because of not wanting to, but it's because they can't financially validate why upgrading to the new standards would actually help them improve and generate more sales. So there's a kind of like, we have to take into consideration some of the outstanding other challenges that they might have, and not for not adapting those standards. But oftentimes if we can encourage their advertisers to go back to publishers and update to the standards, you do see them adopt them quicker.
Interesting. Jamie wants to know, what is your advice for professionals that are looking to expand their career in digital and marketing?
Network. Mm-hmm. Network. Do your homework. So for every job that I had, I made sure that I also understood what the other teams were doing and what their roles were and what what some of the challenges that they had. And so in a lot of cases, the media team and the analytics team are supposed to pull reports, right? So pull data, understand how their campaigns are performing. I took the extra step of going, let me see exactly how they pull the data. How can I make it easier for them? And in that process, I learned more about the data than most of the teams know about the data. And it then allowed me to create standards, to create a process and elevate myself, right? Because then I would say, hey, look what I did. What took me 2 hours to do now only takes me 20 minutes. I can replicate the same for team B. And then my manager would be like, that's great. let's roll it out. Why don't you take the lead and create a training program, et cetera, et cetera. So those are things that, I always kind of took the extra step of figuring out what their needs are and then coming up with solutions for them. So it doesn't only benefit me, but it benefits the whole team. And what benefits the whole team also benefits me.
Yeah. And it goes back again to being curious. And that curiosity allows you to put what you already know in a greater context. And that allows you to be helpful to people and create that network in a very meaningful way. So I think that's such a great example. Okay, just a few more. Coco would like to know, how do you make yourself heard? That's a good question.
So one of the things, I just raise my hand and I just insert myself. For other people, if you're not confident about doing that, every meeting that you attend, there's got to be something that you're asking yourself. There's got to be questions that you're coming up with, or that you can come up with. So I actually trained my team to do. So I talked about how a lot of my team was introverts, right? I actually forced them to ask 2 questions per meeting. Come up with 2 questions. There is no bad questions. So regardless of whatever meeting it is, either you could think about yourself or actually come up with a question that you think might benefit the entire crowd, right? So that's kind of like how I made sure that and that was something that I did, right? I've got a question. I'm not just going to sit there. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm gonna give my opinion, and if people don't like my opinion, that's okay.
I really like that. I'm a big proponent of asking questions and also asking the right questions. And I think I might have to borrow that tactic. I think that's a good one. Question asking is a lost art and very important. All right. Travis wants to know, is it still possible to be first at anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot going on in the world.
Things are new. This past year, this past year and the next 2-3 years, there's going to be so many different changes. There's so many different types of companies that are even popping up that didn't exist 10 years ago. So absolutely, there's an opportunity to be the first. I like to see, who Facebook has as the first VR client on their ad platform. So yes.
Yeah. And this goes back to being curious and finding context for what you already know. It might help you think of something in a way that somebody else hasn't.
Yep.
And if you come up with something, you could actually come up with the first thing. Don't just doubt yourself and be like, well, I'm sure someone's thought of that.
Exactly.
Maybe not. All right. Last question, Angelina. You mentioned changes within industry. Devin wants to know, how do you keep up with all the changes happening within your industry?
Oh my God. This is
Where do we start?
You know what? Twitter and LinkedIn are one of my main sources, right? Because if you build up a community of people that are in the industry, you'll think people talking about, posting about what they're going through, new stats or findings that they have, or new products that are coming out. So that's one area where, I actually read tweets and LinkedIn posts. And then I would say that Ad Exchanger, DigiDay, Ad Age, Ad Week are my go-tos, as well as obviously the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. But Ad Exchanger, I feel, is really capturing some of the challenges that some of the things that we're working on as an industry and going through. But at the same time, find out, you can learn about it at the IAB, right? So we host a lot of events. We talk, we present, we bring panelists and speakers to the stage. And we have at least 1 or 2 events each month that is catered to buyers as well as publishers. And we have this major event in January called ALM, Annual Leadership Meeting. And it's open to college students. So please be sure to sign up for IAB.com because we have a whole program for graduates and postgraduates. And you can actually get involved and attend these events and learn what's happening in the space.
Yep. And they really do host great events for students. They just had one a couple of weeks ago. So definitely sign up for what IAB is doing because they are really looking out for all of you. All of us, I should say. Okay, I think we're just going to have to leave it there for today. We have a lot more questions, Angelina, so maybe we'll have you back for round 2. Thank you so much for spending time with us here today. Students, you know how to find us. By now, you should know. Every week we talk about it, supernovacommemncements.com. We're at SuperNova Commencements everywhere on the web and all the platforms. Please sign up for the mailing list. We will send you cool things, only cool things, internships, and we have some grant opportunities and some cool things coming your way. So please sign up for the mailing list. Next, we also have on the website, obviously, past shows and our schedule for who's coming up. Next week, we have Carisha Moore, who runs Usher, yes, Usher's New Look Foundation, and they're doing lots of cool things with kids. So please be here for that. Angelina, do you have any parting words for our students?
I would say, at the advertising industry at least now is really exciting time. So you're really getting into, if you go into this field, you're really getting into some new things that are going to happen, and you guys are going to be the problem solvers for it. So welcome to the industry and have a great summer. And again, congratulations to the graduates.
Yes, congrats to the grads. Have a great week. See y'all later. Remember, it's a blessing to be a blessing, and be kind to people today as you go through your day. See y'all soon. Bye.